This episode of the Gooner Ramble podcast is sponsored by the new app called Bookie. That's BOOKEE. Sign up by using the promo code RAMBLE, deposit and bet £10 and get a free £10 bet. That's Bookie, BOOKEE.
Hey, I'm Jules Breach and you're listening to the Gooner Ramble Girls podcast.
Hi everyone, welcome to another Gooner Ramble Girls podcast. Tonight I have my sister from another mister with me. Hi Sophia.
Hiya, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Another win on Sunday, but we'll talk about that in a minute.
We will. Well, you and me are alone tonight because unfortunately Sophie and Seema can't make it. So, aren't we lucky that tonight I welcome BT Sport and Premier League TV presenter, the lovely Jules Breach. Welcome, Jules.
Hey, girls. Thanks so much for having me on. It's so nice to be part of this podcast today.
Well, you know what? We're absolutely thrilled to have you on. Me and Sophia have been talking about this for a long time, and the girls, that we wanted a fantastic woman in football on our podcast.
Well, it's, you two are exactly the same, so it's a pleasure to be part of it. And obviously, you had to get me on after you guys beat Brighton. Thanks for that.
Well, you see, I wasn't going to mention it so early, but as you brought it into the conversation, what were your thoughts on the game?
Do you know what? As a Brighton fan, there are going to be a lot of really tough games that, especially away, that we go to this season. And going to the Emirates was up there as one of those tough ones that we were expecting. And I think most Brighton fans came away from that game actually feeling not too disheartened, to be honest. I thought that we put in a good performance. Obviously, it was predominantly defensive, which is what we were expecting. We never expected, particularly with Tom Mohamed being out because of his 3-match ban for that retrospective action from the Newcastle game, particularly going to Arsenal without a recognised fit striker, because obviously Glenn Murray not 100% fit. He was on the bench. It was always going to be tough, but then any trip to Arsenal was going to be tough. So I think, we knew we were going to go. We knew we were going to try and defend and just try and hope for a lucky goal, or a goal from a set piece was what we were probably sort of clinging on our hopes to for any goal from the Brighton side. So, 2-0, it wasn't embarrassing. It's not like we've been thrashed like Crystal Palace have for the last few games of the season. So that's still keeping a smile on a lot of Brighton fans' faces at the moment. And I thought we put in a decent performance defensively, particularly. Lewis Dunk was our man of the match by a million miles. He was unbelievable. He was just throwing his body at absolutely everything. So, we'd have loved to come away with a point, but, Arsenal just had too much for us.
I was actually quite impressed because I would have thought you would have come and sat in parts of us, to be honest, to get that point. And I don't feel you did that. Actually, no. You definitely deserved a penalty. Absolutely, 100%. I can't deny that. That was down where I sit.
Really?
I felt
you have quite a clear view of it then.
Yeah, right in front. I just looked at my cousin. It's in my eye line exactly, because I sit in the East Stand, which is opposite where Wenger sits. So where we were like, ooh, like that.
Yeah, and we hit the post as well in the first half. That strike could have got us back in the game, and at 1-1, that would have been, I'm not saying it would have been a completely different match. I think Arsenal still would have dominated, but, that could have just put Arsenal in a bit of a nervy position, Brighton getting an away goal fairly early on. I don't know. I think that if that went in, it could have been quite a tough first half for Arsenal. And I think when you guys scored the first goal, I actually felt that it settled the Brighton players a bit. It kind of took a little bit of it sounds silly really, because you concede a goal and then the pressure kind of came off a bit, but we seemed to kind of get a bit more into the match after that first goal was scored. I don't know what you guys thought.
No, I definitely agree with that. And, the fact that you said, you thought you could maybe score from a set piece. Well, it nearly happened because the set piece that it was the set piece that you hit the post with, and it was a really good set piece that was right in front of me. I was really impressed with it, but the thing that it seems to
did you have your head in your hands, Sophia?
Oh my God, I just heard because I saw Czech was beaten, so I was like, well, that's it, that's going in. And the fact that it hit the post and came out, I even thought you'd get the rebound because there were more Brighton players running in on it than we were. Thankfully, we got it away. But it's one of the things that I found about our defending that's really poor is we just seem to be asleep on set pieces. Both your corners were really good, and you caused us a lot of trouble. If it wasn't for Nacho Monreal, you definitely would have scored early. We would have gone in 1-1, and God only knows what would have happened after that. I was really impressed with Brighton, but also I think I said it like last week, but I actually think we're one of the dullest teams to watch in the top six. We used to be the most entertaining, and I don't find us entertaining. Would you agree with that? I mean, I think, I look at Liverpool, okay, they can't defend, but going forward, they look amazing. City, well, they score all the time. Man, you've been scoring for, even as much as it pains me to admit it, Spurs look better than us. All those teams above us look better than us. We look, we used to be great on the counter-attack. The amount of times counter-attacks broke down too easily, we let Brighton back in. It was constant. What did you think?
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. I'm not going to lie, though. There were a couple of counter-attacks. I can't remember exactly when in the game it was after what set piece it was from Brighton. But at one point, I think there was like 4 Arsenal players charging forward like lions towards Matt Ryan, and bless him, I don't know how he managed to actually just be strong and stand up and actually make the save, because if I saw 4 Arsenal forwards running towards me, I think I'd just close my eyes. I'd just be like, oh God. It was frightening at times, your counter-attack. So I guess I disagree with that to a certain extent, but at the same time, I know what you mean in terms of the entertainment value. I think I've been to a lot of games at the Emirates in the last season because I tend to work at a lot of Champions League games. So obviously not this season, but last year I worked at all of the home games at the Emirates in the Champions League, and I think it just seems a little bit flat. And I can't really explain it. I was actually doing a show today at the Premier League called Fan Zone, and we had an Arsenal fan come on, and you can't deny you've had a good run of late. Is it 7 unbeaten now, Arsenal? 7 unbeaten.
Yes, but I put that down to the teams we're playing. Right. We're playing a lot of teams that are bottom half of the table, not expected to. The teams we're expected to beat. It's when we come up, apart from Chelsea, which I would admit was a good 0-0 draw, but apart from Chelsea, all the other teams are teams we're expected to beat. And it's when we come up, me personally, I think we're papering over the cracks. Okay. And I think it's the teams who we're going to, when we meet the likes of, because we've got Everton away after the international break, and okay, they're going through a bad stretch, but they beat us at Goodison Park last season, so that to me the acid test will be when we come up against teams like that.
And I think back to the question you asked before about whether they're not as entertaining to watch as they used to be, Arsenal. I do agree with you. I think that it just doesn't seem quite as fluid as it used to be. There are a couple of little moments of magic from Sanchez in the Brighton game that, he's still world class, and that pass to Iwobi for the goal was disgusting. I was like, oh, why? Why have you just done that to us? That was a lovely bit of football to watch. But I do agree with you. I think as a whole, it probably does feel a little bit less entertaining than it used to be. But I think Arsenal as a club have just changed over the last couple of years, I think. And it's like the last few years, the last kind of couple of seasons since there's been more rumbles about Arsene Wenger, I think that possibly has affected the way the team have played.
I believe one of your roles is hosting Champions League nights at Manchester City and United, and you used to do so at Arsenal. have you seen, as you've been doing it along the years, have you seen a difference in the fans there, even the people that work there? Is there a difference in atmosphere?
I think that I particularly noticed last year a lot more negativity from the Arsenal fans from the season prior to that. The season before that, there was rumbles, there was a little bit of negativity creeping in, but you could kind of separate it from the majority. But last season, it did feel quite negative around the stand. It wasn't a particularly great atmosphere. I didn't go to any league games at the Emirates, so I can't speak for. I don't know whether it's a different crowd on Champions League nights. I don't know whether it's more of a corporate crowd on Champions League nights. I don't know if the area I'm sat in is more corporate, so not necessarily the hardcore Arsenal fans. But yeah, I did notice that it seemed a bit more negative. And from a lot of the other fan shows that I work on and present at the Premier League, the show Fan Zone, we get so many Arsenal fans, and I do love the Arsenal fans, I'm not going to lie, because they do make me laugh. But quite a lot of the Arsenal fans that come on do tend to be quite negative. And, I get it. We're football fans. We like to criticise. We like to be a bit critical. We like to analyse everything. And it's part of what being a fan's all about, really. But I do think that Arsenal fans need a bit of cheering up. Come on.
Yeah, we do. So going back to Brighton, how are you finding the transition from the Championship to the Premier League? What are the main differences you've noticed on and off the pitch?
Wow, it's been tough, from going from a season where we were winning the majority of games, we were scoring plenty of goals, we were keeping a lot of clean sheets. Already in 7 matches in the Premier League, we've seen what a big jump it is. I think the thing that I've been most impressed with is our fans. I think that we've just loved every second of it. You go out first game of the season, you play Manchester City. That was always going to be difficult. And the fans got behind the players and the team 110%. And, again, I've been to Bournemouth away already this season. I've been to a couple of the home games, but I've been to one away game, went to Bournemouth away a couple of Friday nights ago. And the fans were absolutely superb. We went 1-0 up. We ended up losing the game 2-1. And they were still cheering louder than the entire set of home fans in that stadium. And again, I thought it the same. I watched the Arsenal game on the telly on Sunday. Unfortunately, I couldn't get to the match. But I thought our fans were unbelievable. That small away section in the Emirates, I felt like we were so loud. And I could hear it on the telly, all of the usual songs that the fans are singing. And I just thought, good on you. You've gone to London. You've got behind the team. You knew it was going to be a tough day, and they've just been so supportive. So I think that It's been great to see that, despite the fact that it's been a tough start to the season, and I think we've been okay. I don't think it's not been disappointing. I think that the start we've had has been fairly realistic in terms of our expectations. Our job for this Premier League season is just to stay up. And that might strike other fans of other clubs as slightly negative. But as a Brighton fan that's followed the club for many years and has been, we've been trying to get into the Premier League for such a long time now, and for coming so close a couple of seasons ago to wanting it so bad last season and finally getting here now, it's kind of like we just want to stay. We just want to make our mark on the Premier League and make sure that we're still playing Premier League football next season. So I think the start we've made has been fairly decent. In terms of the change, I think that, we're going to come up against world-class players pretty much every week, and that's been the most difficult transition. I think for the players themselves, there's not a lot of players in the Brighton squad that have played Premier League football before. And so that's probably been the biggest jump, is getting our players used to the tempo, used to not having as much possession as we're used to in the Championship. And I think that a couple of players have really, really surprised me, if I'm honest. Solly March, who hit the post in the Arsenal game, he is one of them that has absolutely amazed me. I mean, he's always been a talented player, but I've actually been to a lot of non-league games at Lewes Football Club, which is where Solly March actually came from. They still are a non-league team, but he was playing non-league football a few seasons ago. And this young kid is now playing in the Premier League, and he doesn't seem affected by it one bit. He looks like he's ready-made to play Premier League football, and I think that's one of the things that's impressed me the most. There's been a couple of players that really look like they're ready for Premier League football, and they've not let it faze them at all.
Jules, can I ask, you mentioned about being promoted and everything. So how disappointed were you that Brighton came so close to winning the championship, only just to be pipped by Newcastle on the last day of the season?
I was fuming. I was absolutely fuming. I think the thing is it got to the point where we got promoted. I was there that day. We got promoted in the game against Wigan. It was such a big celebration. And it was kind of like job done, which was the wrong way to look at it, because to go on and then win the championship title would have just sealed off the best season ever. And it obviously wasn't meant to be. I don't know I genuinely can't tell you what it was, but that last run of those last few games of the season were just dreadful. We just couldn't get a result. We just couldn't score. We just couldn't get anything out of the games. And I guess I can only put it down to the mentality of the players at that stage. Maybe they were just they lost focus. I don't know. Maybe it was that the pressure had come off and they just sort of let their heads drop a bit. I can't really explain it. But as a fan, I still thought going into the last day of the season, I will still win this. I was still optimistic about it. And then to concede that late on in the game and know that it was over and we weren't going to win the title was, it was tough to take. But it was always going to be, from quite early on in the season, it was obvious it was going to be either Brighton or Newcastle's. I don't think we ever really believed that Huddersfield would challenge for the title. And Newcastle are a top club, so it was tough to take, but the better team won.
This may sound quite ignorant, but I need to ask this, okay? Regarding that, did it really matter? Surely the whole purpose is just to get in the Premier League, or am I wrong there?
There's two ways of looking at it, I suppose. I think that as fans, what mattered more was just getting promoted. But I think more so for the players, I know that if I was a player and I had the chance to pick up a winning medal for winning the championship title, I'd want that. I would want that more than just, oh yeah, great, we got promoted. Of course, absolutely brilliant achievement. But I don't know. I think that it would have meant more if we won the title. To go up as champions would have meant a bit more than, I say just getting promoted like it's nothing, but rather than just getting promoted. But yeah, I mean, job done in terms of getting promoted. It was still the best thing to happen to the club, and us fans will never forget that day when it was officially sealed. We knew we were going to be playing Premier League football this season. That was amazing. But it did. I do think it did matter that we didn't win the title.
It's kind of like, Arsenal going from title winners to position 4 winners kind of thing. It's like, okay, yeah, we're in the Champions League, but really you want to go in the Champions League as champions, that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. We wanted to come to the Premier League and be able to say we won the championship. We were the best team in that division. And we couldn't say that because Newcastle got more points than us in the end. So, it is disappointing, but Brighton fans are never going to let anyone put a dampener on last season. It was the best season in the club's history. We partied for months because of promotion. And honestly, I think that when it came down to it and we didn't win on the last day of the season, it was kind of like a moment of disappointment, but then a reality check of, hang on a minute, let's not get too downbeat about this. We're in the bloody Premier League. Can I say bloody?
Yes, you can.
we're in the Premier League. Come on, let's lighten up. Let's celebrate this because we're playing Premier League football for the first time in 34 years. Well, the first time ever, but top flight football for first time in 34 years. That's an amazing achievement. for a club like Brighton, for where they've come from and everything that they've through. Yeah. It's an amazing achievement. So yeah, we were still buzzing despite not winning.
Okay, you're listening to the Gooner Ramble Girls podcast with special guest Jules Breach. Jules, you've had quite an interesting upbringing. You spent your early years in Mauritius and Jamaica. Just tell us a bit what that was like.
Oh, you've been digging, haven't you?
We've been digging. We're Gooner girls. We always dig.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, amazing. I mean, my dad's a chef. He's an executive chef in hotels, so he's always travelled around with work. And him and my mum have lived all over the place since before they had me and my brother. So I was born in Brighton, and my dad got a job when I was about 6 months at the time, and so we moved down to Mauritius. And I lived there until I was 5. So my first language I actually spoke was French, because obviously Mauritius' first language is French Creole. Yeah. So I actually learnt to speak French before I learnt to speak English, and now I can't speak a single word of it, so don't even ask.
What?
So honestly, I wish I could speak another language. I'm gonna try and learn one this year. That's my mission for this year. But so that was, I don't really remember a great deal of living in Mauritius, if I'm honest. I was too young. But we then came back to Brighton when I was 5, went to school out here for a few years, and then Dad got a job in Jamaica. So we then upped sticks again and moved out to the Caribbean, and I lived there for the best part of 8 years. So I went to school out there, went to high school, I learnt to play tennis, and that's kind of when sport really became a big part of my life. Obviously, you can imagine what it's like being brought up in the Caribbean. There's not a great lot to do out there. So quickly, my mum got me involved in sport to kind of keep me out of trouble, I guess. And tennis became a huge part of my life. So I started playing tennis at a pretty decent level. I was like touring around the country and playing in tournaments. And that's where my love of sport kind of like came from, and my competitive nature has come from that as well. And I carried on, and then Dad's a huge football fan. My dad's actually originally from Middlesbrough, so he's a Middlesbrough fan, unlucky for him. And
so how come you're not a Middlesbrough fan?
Oh, I'm not going to support Middlesbrough, sorry. No offence, Borough fans. No, to be honest, my dad we watched a lot of games on telly. Being in Jamaica, obviously, couldn't really go to any games, but my dad sort of had the games on all the time, and we'd watch the games. And one day we were watching a Middlesbrough-Liverpool game, funny enough, and my dad said to me, "Oh, one of the players on the pitch has got the same name as me." And I was like, "Oh, who's that then?" And he said, "Steven Gerrard." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "Dad, your name's not Steven Gerrard." But it was. My dad's name is Steven Gerrard Sova. So my dad's middle name is Gerrard. So at that point, I was like, Steven Gerrard, I'm quite interested. I'm just going to keep watching him. So I became fascinated with Stevie G at quite a young age, as I think a lot of girls probably did. And I thought he was really cute. So I was like, I'm going to start following this player. And honestly, that is where my love of football came from, was through my fascination of Stevie G.
Oh, yes, because you do Liverpool. You're one of these strange people that has 2 teams.
I am. I know. People don't like this. But it's, it's true. It is. I started following Liverpool. That's where my love of football kind of came from. And I always sort of followed them. And then being from Brighton were always another team that I kind of looked out for and supported at the same time. And so when I moved back to England, which was when I was 16, to come back to school, I moved back to Brighton. So I then was like, I had this weird kind of like fascination with Stevie G and Liverpool, and I kept up to date with how Liverpool were always doing. And then I started following Brighton as well, and because they were never in the same division, it was never an issue. And back in those days, we're talking like Brighton were in League One in like some of these like sort of days that I'm talking about. So we never thought in a million years we'd play each other than cup games. So it was always kind of seen as okay to support 2 teams. So now that they're both in the Premier League, it's a little bit awkward. I'm like, oh God, what do I even do when they play each other? So
that's what I was going to say. Can I just ask you, who do you support when Brighton will play Liverpool?
Well, put it this way, I'm not buying a half and half scarf.
No, you better not. Oh my God, it's my bugbear in football. Go on.
Don't. Honestly, some of my mates went to the Arsenal-Brighton game at the weekend, and one of them posted a picture with a half and half scarf. And honestly, you should have seen my abuse on Facebook. I can't repeat it. I actually can't repeat it. My language was atrocious, but I was like, "What are you doing?" It was quite funny.
So go on. What are you going to do when they play each other?
I think I think it will really depend on who's got something to play for. I can't remember the fixture list, but I'm pretty sure Brighton have got Liverpool quite near the end of the season. And I think if Brighton are fighting to stay up, obviously I'm going to want Brighton to win. And I know that sounds like a bit of a cop-out of an answer, but that's the genuine truth. If they played each other, I'd lean more towards wanting Brighton to win.
Okay, I'm going to just ask a quick question, then we're going to answer something else. Brighton-Liverpool FA Cup final next May. Now tell me who you're going to support.
Oh, don't do this to me.
No, you have to answer, because my best mate will kill me for not answering that. He can't stand anyone that has two teams. We always argue about this, so come on.
I'd say Brighton.
Right, so your affinities towards Brighton.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay.
Good girl.
It's a hard one, though. It's hard, that's like, you've been brought up loving one thing. Like, say you've been brought up loving one chocolate bar, right? And it's always been your favourite chocolate bar for years. But then a new chocolate bar comes along and you think, oh, but I like that one as well.
No, not with football.
Really?
No, Jules. I liked you at the beginning.
Sorry, it's just one of those things. It was, my dad was never going to bring me up as a Brighton fan because he was a Borough fan, but I just never fancied Borough at all. I never liked them. I never liked watching the way they played, so I was never going to support the team that my dad supported just because my dad supported them. And I just had this little thing for Liverpool. And obviously in those days, living in Jamaica, we didn't get League One and Championship games on the telly, so I couldn't watch Brighton play. So I had to have a Premier League club, and my Premier League club were Liverpool, and my hometown club were Brighton. So it's just been the way it's been. I'm sorry.
Fair enough, hon, fair enough. So anyway, like myself, you're a woman who works in the male-dominated world of sport. I saw that you worked on the Rugby World Cup and you started your own sports radio show. What difficulties have you encountered so far?
Do you know what? I've actually had a pretty good ride with the sports world so far. I haven't received... I think I probably came into it at quite a good time, if I'm honest. I've been working in sport now for about, God, let me count backwards, how many years? Maybe about 5-6 years now. And I think I came in at quite a good time when women started to be a lot more accepted in the sports industry on screen. You know, I think women have been working behind the scenes in the sporting industry for a long time, but more so in terms of being accepted and being recognised for your knowledge, on screen as a presenter. I think that I definitely picked a good time to sort of break into the industry because there are a lot more women, you know, working in football and other sports, and I haven't experienced a great deal of difficulty at all. There have probably been a couple of times where, you know, I've had a few not very nice comments, but more so on social media, and funny enough, more so from people that I know, which is really weird. In terms of people I work with in the industry, I think that people would be stupid to make any kind of rude comments because they know it's not really right. But, you know, I've had comments from like mates, dads and stuff who are probably a bit more old school who say things like, oh, you work in football, do you know the offside rule? And you're like, you're so boring, shut up. Like, what is even the point of saying that? And you get a lot of people saying things like, oh, you work in football, great, that's so exciting. Do you actually like football? And you're like, obviously, why would I work in football if I didn't like it? Like, it just seems like they just seem like you wouldn't say that to a bloke. You know, if a bloke said, oh, I work in football, their mate would go, oh, brilliant, mate, great job. They wouldn't go, oh, do you actually like it? It's just such a stupid, kind of narrow-minded comment to make. But in terms of actually working in it, I've had great experience. The only negatives have, like I said, come from the odd person who, you know, you come across a mate of a mate or a mate's dad, like I said, or the odd person on social media has made a few sort of like get back in the kitchen comments. But, you know, I take them with a pinch of salt, if I'm honest, because I think I've heard a lot worse from other friends that have experienced not so nice comments. So I think I've been fairly lucky with it. And yeah, and in terms of everyone I work with, everyone's great. All of the kind of ex-pros that I work with on all the channels are all lovely. All the other co-presenters I work with are just brilliant. So yeah, I'm loving it and I wouldn't change it for the world.
Okay, so speaking of TV, you know, you're currently working on BT Sports Result Programme, BT Sports Score. Okay, so what do you think makes it different to similar shows like the BBC's Final Score and Soccer Saturday on Sky?
Wow, that's a good question. I think we're just a bit fresher. We're willing to kind of take a few risks and include things like our fantasy football updates. We just seem a little bit more connected with what maybe the kind of new audience wants to hear and wants to see, you know. I personally think that the stuff we do on the show is great. It's pacey, it's dynamic, it's interesting. We get a lot of really good opinions. The guests we get are very current. You know, we've got people on the sofa that have only stopped playing in the last few seasons. And I think that that's really refreshing to have more of the kind of current ex-pros, you know, like Jermaine Genius. We had Shay Given on the show last weekend. He's awesome, by the way. And we had Joey Barton on last season, and we just get a bit more of the current guests that I think are really interesting to listen to, because they can actually say, oh, when I played against them last year, or, you know, whatever it is that they might comment on. And I think that brings a kind of fresh outlook on the analysis. But yeah, I just think that the way the show is produced, like the graphics on it are really eye-catching, so it's great to watch in the pub. It just feels fresher, it feels younger, and I think we all have such a laugh making it that it can't not be enjoyable to watch.
Yeah. And you was on about the fact that you deal in the fantasy football side of things. You know, I'm a big fantasy football fan.
You love it.
I do. Now, as a Gooner, I like to include Arsenal players in my team and find it really tough putting Spurs players. The only Spurs player I've got at the moment is Alderweireld, but okay. I'm going to be honest, I did try and put Kane in, and it just, I felt Did you
feel a bit sick? Yeah.
Yeah, I felt sick, but I knocked myself up the side of my head and said, no, you can't put him in, so I didn't, even though it's going to cost me. Now, I stopped putting Spurs players in my team. Do you find that you have to sacrifice Brighton players for points in yours, or do you think, I don't care, it's my team, I'm going to put them in?
I'm not going to lie, you know, like, I'm not going to like sit here and say I'm going to get loads of points out of Brighton players this season. Absolutely not. But they're cheap, which for fantasy football is good. So, you know, everyone needs to spread their bank balance in fantasy football. So you need a couple of cheaper options. And luckily, because I've been watching Brighton for so long, I know that there are a couple of little gems in our Brighton side who are very cheap and that are great to have in your team. So I'm not looking at them and expecting to get loads of points. In fact, two of them haven't played in my fantasy team all season. They've both been on the bench. So they're purely there so I can spread the money elsewhere. But yeah, to be honest, I'm not like, oh, I need to have a Brighton player in. I'm more like you in that I would feel sick if I had to put a Palace player in, because that for me would not go down very well. I wouldn't feel very nice about doing that. Last season it was different because Brighton weren't playing in the Premier League, so they weren't directly up against Palace. So I did have Zaha in my team last year for a period when he was on fire. But this year I've kind of said to myself, unless someone is like absolutely unbelievable, which let's face it, in the Palace team they're not going to be, I won't have any Palace players in my FPL team. No chance. Absolutely no chance. But yeah, at the moment, 3 Brighton players in my team, but 2 of them are pretty much just bench warmers.
Oh, Jules. Okay, go back to Brighton a second. Come make
Yeah.
your fantasy league. Going from fantasy league to Premier League, how do you see Brighton doing? Do you think you can stay up? And if you think you can stay up, where do you think you'll come?
It's a really good question. I think that, now we've got 2 wins under our belt. Both of them came at home. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on the team to really make the most of those home games and try and get as many points as we possibly can at the Amex, because I think that will be the difference in us staying up or not. I think we're going to just have such a tough ride away from home. It's going to be difficult. It's not going to be the prettiest season for us, but I've seen enough in the first 7 games that I can sit here and comfortably say there are worse teams than us. Probably 3 worse teams than us so far this season that I could say we've been better than them so far this season. And if it continues this way, we've got every chance of staying up. I think that if you defend well, you've always got a chance of staying in a game. And from the performances I've seen from Dunk and Duffy at the back so far, they have been unbelievable. And if they continue to play as well as they are and concentrate as much as they're doing in each and every game, and, we've got to go up the other end of the pitch and score goals. That seems to be our main issue. We're unlucky to lose Tom Mohamed to that 3-match ban. Glenn Murray's still not 100% fit, and I think Brighton fans still want to get another striker. I think we definitely need to buy someone in January. We need a striker that... I'm just gutted that we couldn't get Defoe, if I'm honest. I think most Brighton fans were thinking, hang on a minute, Defoe leaves Sunderland. Can we pounce on a player like that? Because if you get someone like him in your side that he's guaranteed to score goals if he's fit, someone like that can be the difference between staying up and going down. And I think that needs to be Chris Hughton's main focus. We were really unlucky in the summer transfer window not to get a striker in. 3 deals fell through, all leading up to deadline day itself. And I think that if we can, in January, strike while it's hot, get someone nice and early, I'm sure Chris Hughton and the team are already working on it. They've probably got their targets already for who they want. I think if we get a striker in and we can score a few more goals, then I think we've got every chance of staying up. And I'm feeling fairly positive at the moment. Like I said, after the first 7 games, I've seen enough from other teams that it's going to be a battle to the end. I do think that it's going to be tough, but I reckon if we finish, even if we, I'm not going to lie, even if we finish 17th, I'm happy with that.
Cool.
Jules, just quickly, where do you think Arsenal will end up?
Oh, that's tough. I think it's really hard this season. I think that you've got 6 teams realistically that could finish in the top 4.
Yeah.
And I mean,
go on, put a number on it.
Arsenal are back in the top 4 after the weekend, and it looks kind of weird. I'm not going to lie. I didn't pick them for finishing in the top 4 in my predictions.
So where did you predict then?
I predicted 6th.
Yeah.
So did I.
But I probably changed my mind on that now, because I think that I wasn't expecting Liverpool to defend as badly as they have. And unless Liverpool sort that out, I think Liverpool could be 6th and Arsenal 5th. I can't see the top 4 being anything other than the 2 Manchester clubs, Chelsea and Tottenham. I just can't see it.
The only thing I would say about Tottenham is they've got a little bit of a hoodoo at Wembley. So let's see. Touch wood, they haven't won a game there yet, in a Premier League game.
I know, honestly, on one of the fan shows that I did today at the Premier League, we had a Tottenham fan on, and he actually said Wembley is a losing stadium. He was so negative about it. He was just like, we are going to struggle because of Wembley. And do you know what? I do get it. I get that the form has obviously been bad at Wembley, and I understand that other teams are going to go to Wembley and they're going to want to perform when they play against Tottenham. So that puts Tottenham in a bit of an unlucky position, really. But so I do Tottenham's Champions League games. I've been there once this season already, and I thought the atmosphere was fantastic. Sorry to say it, girls, but the Tottenham fans were well behind the team. Tottenham played amazingly that night, and I don't know, I can see them turning it around, if I'm honest. I think that the whole Wembley, I don't think it's going to last. I'm not going to be very popular on this now, am I? But I don't know. I see it as kind of the same thing as the whole Harry Kane doesn't score in August. It's one of those things that kind of has been said and oversaid and oversaid. But really, is it a thing or is it just unlucky? I don't know.
Well, it's not unlucky for Arsenal fans. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, do you know what, Jules? It's just been brilliant having you on tonight. I know you've got to go. So Sophia and I want to thank you so much for the chat. And all I can say is we're the loose women of football, and now you're one.
Oh, thank you, girls. Thanks for having me on. And I'm sorry again for having two teams. I promise I won't let you down with anything else ever again. I do have a favourite chocolate bar, and there is one and one only, and it's a Galaxy. So at least we're clear on that.
So we're au fait on the chocolate, not so much on the teams. Oh, brilliant, Jules.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
You're welcome,
We've loved
girls.
it.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you. See you girls soon.
Take care. Bye. I'd love to thank Jules Breach for coming on. Oh, my life. I could have spoken to her for 2 or 3 hours. Absolutely fantastic. What did you think, Sophia?
Absolutely. She's everything I thought she would be and more. She was funny. She was enlightening. It was nice to get her views on Brighton and, what it was like being in the Championship compared to being in the Premiership. Maybe we should listen to Adrian. Maybe Arsenal do need to get relegated for us to start being more loving our club again.
Sophia, no.
I can't do that either. But
no.
It was. And she was brilliant, and it's just nice having another Gooner girl. Well, she's not a Gooner girl, but she's a football girl.
She's a football girl.
Yeah, she is,
and we love them. Right, darling. Listen, we haven't got any football this weekend, and as most people call it the Interlull, I call it the Interdole because it just bores me. But let's have just a quick chat about our national side, shall we? So. We play Lithuania on the 8th, okay? This pod will probably be out just after Slovenia, so we'll talk about Lithuania.
Okay.
We haven't really got any players, Arsenal players, have we, that are going to be called up?
For the first time in ages. And it's really strange because, it's one of the things that we're used to is having Arsenal players going to all their other and going away for international duty, and we're always worried about them not coming back fit, etc., etc. For the first time, we've got nothing to worry about with England. But having said that, is the Arsenal English core no more? You look at Tottenham; they've got 5 players. England just called up Harry Winks because Phil Jones is injured, and I'll be honest. I'm not a massive England fan. For me, Arsenal come first. But I think it is worrying that there are no Arsenal players in the England team. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. But I'm, unfortunately, and I'll probably get slaughtered for this, I'm not interested in England, I'm afraid. I haven't been for many, many years. I would love to see Wilshere play for England because I think he's good enough. And as what we saw of him a week ago, he's definitely good enough for England. But where would you play him and who with? I'm not really, I'm not into international football for England. Saying that though, when Ozil plays for Germany or Lacazette, Koscielny play for France and so forth, I'm always interested in anyone else's. It's bizarre, I want my players.
But do you think it's because their teams play better football? It's more interesting to watch. Because I work on England games, and I'll be honest, I find them totally dull. I'm there, and they're so dull. And yet, I worked on France England at the Stade de France, and honestly, I was more interested in watching what France were doing than what England were doing. They were exciting. It was a breath of fresh air. It was amazing to watch, and they just ran rings round England. Absolutely did.
Well, talking of France, they got Belarus when we play Lithuania, or a couple of days later they're playing, and we've got Lacazette, Giroud, and you know what's funny? Deschamps often starts Giroud ahead of Lacazette, where Wenger does the opposite. You know, he'll take Lacazette off and bring Giroud on. But I wonder if, you know, Deschamps might change his mind a little bit. But then I'm not sure, because he does play a different style, doesn't he? That's why Giroud plays.
Yeah, he prefers Giroud over Lacazette. But then, with Lacazette doing so well at Arsenal at the moment, do you think that's going to change Deschamps' mind and start playing him ahead of Giroud, especially as Giroud's not really playing that often? Yes, he comes off the bench, and he has been doing for the last season or two. Do you think Lacazette will change his mind?
Depends what he sets the team up like. He plays to Giroud's strengths. So that's why Lacazette's on the bench. It doesn't mean Lacazette isn't any good. He just sets the team up differently. You know, that's his way. I mean, we've got players everywhere, haven't we? We've got Kolasinac at Bosnia and Herzegovina. We've got Monreal, Spain. They'll play Israel on the 9th.
Although Bellerin didn't get called up, which was I'm
not surprised, actually. I don't think he's had a good start. I don't think he had a good end to last season either. So I'm not. Monreal, I would have been shocked. He's had a brilliant start. And maybe they've got a better player, Spain, instead of Bellerin. But obviously Cazorla injured, you know. Will we ever see him again, I hope? Yeah. I mean, obviously we've got our homegrown. We've got Wales, got Ramsey. So that's how I look at it. And I love it when Ramsey plays for Wales, because he often plays well.
He does play a different position. His role is different, though, although they're going to struggle with Bale not being there, because Bale and Ramsey are their two best players. Ramsey can't on his own, so that could really cost them, I think.
I also think that it's going to be interesting watching Xhaka. He's going to play Portugal for Switzerland. But one of the main ones is interesting. There's South America, with Chile being 6th in the group, only 4 qualify. 5th place goes to a playoff, and Brazil already qualified. They play Brazil on the 11th, which is going to be very much worth watching.
And it's Brazil away as well. It's not even Brazil at home. No. It's Brazil away.
Definitely one I'm going to put in my diary for next week to watch. I'd be much more interested in that than England, I'm afraid.
Me too.
And obviously going back to Alexis, and there's a lot of chat on my Facebook and my Twitter about Alexis. Unfortunately, I'm in the pro Alexis camp. I want him to stay. Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. But let me ask you a question then. So what would it mean if Alexis misses out on the World Cup? Do you think he'll have any bearing on whether he stays or not, or do you think he's definitely gone?
I think he's definitely gone. I don't think that's going to matter. It just annoys me that he'll be going after the first time he's actually going to get a break. You know, he's not had a break from international football for about 4 or 5 years, because he's played in an international tournament every single summer. And then the 1 year that we could probably benefit from it, he'll be going. It'll be Man City that's benefiting from it, because he'll be gone.
Yeah, I know. And then, you know, tough, innit? I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I want them to beat Brazil, because I think it's going to give Sanchez a bit of happiness, which we may actually see more of on the pitch. But, you know, just a quick shout out. We've got David Ospina, possibly against Peru for Colombia. You've got Alex Iwobi, although faces a bit of a fitness test, against Zambia in Africa. That's going to be a big match for them. Yeah. And El Nene. You know, he's playing in the Congo. But Egypt are playing at home. A few of them are playing at home, actually. So you've got most of our team out, except the English corps, which is the ironic thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really quite strange. It's very, very strange. What does it say about our team? What does it say about we were supposed to have this wonderful English corps coming through, and they're all getting broken up. I mean, Oxlade-Chamberlain's been called up for England, but he's no longer with us. You know, it's like you, I'm not that bothered about England. I never have been. You know, when they failed to call up Ian Wright when he was the best striker in the country, that's when I just gave up on England. It was always, it was always Arsenal for me, but even more so now, and I work on the game. So what does that say about me?
Well, but you know what? I just started saying it's the Interdol, but when you look at those matches, it's not going to be that dull for us next week. I'm definitely going to be watching Brazil and Chile. Wow, what a game that's going to be. I'm excited now. I'm a little bit excited about the Interdol, just not our games. I might switch our game on for a little bit. Darling, can we play our little snog, marry, avoid game?
Yes, let's do it.
I know, but our listeners seem to love it, which I wasn't sure on, but I've had some brilliant comments on it. So, young lady, I've chosen 3 players, 2 of old, 1 of new. They're goalkeepers this week.
Oh, it's a goalkeeper special.
It's a goalkeeper special. A little bit of a safe hands. Does that give you a clue to number 1?
Oh, no, it's the ponytail.
Oh, it's the ponytail. Sorry. Right, let's be professional towards the end. It's going to be snog, marry or avoid David Seaman, Jens Lehmann, Petr Cech.
Mm-hmm. Do you want me to go first?
Well, it's only you and me, so go on.
Okay. Well, no, you might want to see what you... Okay, so I would snog David Seaman. I just couldn't marry him because I have a rule that no man's hair should be longer than mine, and I couldn't be seen with someone with a ponytail. I'm sorry, I just can't. Marry, I would marry Petr Cech because even though he's been with us the shortest amount of times out of all the keepers, I love a man who can play drums. There's just something about all that banging that I like. Now, I don't know if that means anything, but that's what I like. Plus, I must admit, I was reading about how he talked to Ryan Mason after Mason's head injury, and he was so lovely. It was brilliant, and it just endeared him to me even more. So that leaves poor Jens, who I'm going to have to avoid, because that I like a lot of women, I like an intense man, but that man is too intense for me. He's crazy and I just can't deal with him. So that's me. Snog Seaman, marry Cech, avoid Lehmann.
Mine's different. Mine is different. Okay. I'm avoiding Cech. I'm going to go this way round it. All right. I'm avoiding Cech because to me he'd be a bit boring. Very nice man, but a bit boring. I can't do boring. And I would actually marry Seaman because I think he'd be so interesting. And I just talked to him for hours and hours and hours about George Graham and all of that, and then Wenger and all that. And I think we'd have a laugh because he's a Northerner, and I quite like Northerners. You know what I'm like?
You do.
But snog Lehmann because, oh my God, the passion would be amazing. It would just be amazing with a capital A. Because we would just have the best time. The banter would be brilliant. He's German, I'm English. Boom. It would be brilliant.
Fair enough.
I'm going to get slaughtered for this. Oh, dear. Right. Well, young lady, it's time for me to wrap up. So, Sophia, that's it for this episode of the Gooner Ramble Girls podcast. Jules Breach, weren't she brilliant?
She was fantastic. I really enjoyed having her on. She's amazing.
Goodbye, my darling, until the next time.
Goodbye to you too, until the next time.
So, everyone listening to the Gooner Ramble Girls podcast, please subscribe. Please do what you got to do on YouTube and iTunes and SoundCloud. I say this every time. I do not take for granted that you listen to us, that you tweet us, that you Facebook us, that you do anything to us and tell us how what you think of us. We've had the most amazing guests and we hope to bring you more amazing guests. But at the end of the day, we are an Arsenal podcast. And remember, always Arsenal.
This episode of the Gooner Ramble podcast is sponsored by the new app called Bookie. That's BOOKEE. Sign up by using the promo code RAMBLE, deposit and bet £10 and get a free £10 bet. That's Bookie, BOOKEE.